Now let's have a look at the back piece.
It would be pretty easy to copy the back if it wasn't for this box pleat, so I'm just going to close it. If you look inside my shirt, you can see the box pleat folds meet at the center line. So I need to find the center line of my back piece, which I can do quite easily with the striped shirt because I can just measure or feel the center of the box pleat and then pin down whichever stripe runs down at that point. But if my shirt wasn't striped, I need to find the center line by pinning the seams and underarm together. Then smooth the fabric till it sits flat, then pin along the center. Once I've found the center line, and I can see from my stripes I've got it right, then I need to measure the folded length of the pleat, which I can do by putting my ruler in the fold at the top here and measuring the distance, which is 2 centimeters. I then need to double it because the fold is double backed on itself, and the double distance is 4 centimeters. Then I'll unfold the shirt and I'll measure 4 centimeters out from the center line and put some pins along the line to mark it. Once I'm done, I should have my center line pin and a line 4 centimeters away. Then I'll fold the fabric so the new line of pins is under my center line. Then I'll pin the fold in place. See how I've extended the box pleat from the top to the hem? Essentially, I've closed the box pleat, so now I'm ready to trace the back. Now I'll grab a piece of pattern paper big enough for both sides of the back, and a bit of extra width as I'll need to add the box pleat on both sides of the back. I'll then draw a line near the center. I need to have enough room to add my box pleat so the line is just in from the center. Then I'll place the center line over the line I just drew on my paper and pin it in place. I'll then smooth out the shirt till it lies flat and pin it near the seams and corners. Then I'll trace, pin or draw my seams and hem. And you can see I haven't ironed my hem very well, so I'm just unfolding and pulling it a bit as I go. For the seam near the back yoke, I'm rolling back the fabric, giving the seam a little tug and folding back the French seam so I can see where the seam is. Same for the armhole. Once I've copied these lines, I'll remove the shirt and draw over the lines. You can see at the top here, the seam connected to the back yoke is curved to create that shaping need to curve around the back. Before I add the box pleat, I'll quickly check my lines. The back yoke seam is 25 centimeters on my shirt. And yes, it's 25 centimeters on my pattern. The armhole is 16.8 centimeters. And my pattern is 17 centimeters, so pretty close. Let's check the side seam. And rather than measuring it, I'm just lining my shirt up against the line. The pattern is a bit shorter, so I'm just going to make it a bit higher at the top and longer at the bottom. By moving the armhole up a couple of millimeters, it will make my armhole smaller too, so the pattern matches the shirt perfectly. Now let's add the box pleat. To do this, I need to add extra width for the length of the fold. The fold length, which I measured and doubled earlier, was 4 centimeters, and I'll draw a parallel line that distance from the center line. Then, I'll blend the top seam and bottom hem to this line, and the line should be completely horizontal, and mark the start of the box pleat, which is 2 centimeters from my center line, with a notch. Then I'll mark the section which will be folded under, which is the folded length, i.e. 4 centimeters, and I'll mark that with a notch too. Then, I'll draw an arrow between the two notches. The arrow should point to where the folded fabric is going, and write fold next to it. And now I have my box pleat. So because I added the folded length of the box pleat, this line isn't the center line anymore. It's actually this line. So I'll rub this line out and make this one my center line and grain line. And if I true the seam with the back yoke pattern, and if I fold the back yoke pattern, you can see this a lot better. You'll see the seams match exactly. I've already got a notch at the box pleat, but I'll also add another one along the seam, then draw the same notch on the back. I can also true my side seam by lying my front pattern over the back, and it's pretty close. However, I've noticed the front hem side seam isn't at a right angle, so I'll make it a right angle, and then mark where it's finishing on the back. And yeah, it's a fair bit lower, so I'll just redraw the hem. And I could freehand, but let's get the original. So I'll just lie the back over the pattern, try line everything up, and then trace around the shape. Once I know the seams match perfectly, I'll add a notch somewhere on the front side seam and draw a matching one on the back. To create the other side of the back, I'll just fold the pattern along the center line and trace all the lines and notches to the other side, so I have both sides of my back pattern.
So once you've trued your seams, you can then add your seam allowances. And seam allowances are usually 1 centimeter if you're metric, and 1/2 inch if you're imperial.
However, if your shirt has a double row of top stitching, like this one, it probably has a flat felled seam, and you'll need a bigger seam allowance to create the side seam. So 1.5 centimeters for metric and 5/8 of an inch for imperial users.
And once you turn your favorite piece of clothing into a perfect pattern, you can then either create a clone of it or you can start designing. If you trace a shirt or a collar shirt, you could change the collar shape, adjust the sleeves to make them shorter, create a rolled cuff. You could also add style lines, bring the shoulder seam forward, add a yoke, add a box pleat. There are so many possibilities. And if you don't know how to do any of that, don't worry. I've actually written very detailed step-by-step guides designed for absolute beginners to teach you how to turn patterns into your own designs.
The oversized shirt guide is broken down into 4 sections. The first section is Make a Plan, which helps you identify the changes you need to make to the block to turn to your pattern. And then part 2 will help you select the best pattern cutting method and give you step-by-step instructions on how to twirl your block. Part 3, Unleash Your Creativity, walks you through all the changes you can make to the block, such as adjusting the length, changing the button, placket and collar, lots of information on different collars, and then how to adjust the yoke and change the shoulder seam position, how to change all the different parts of the sleeve, including its silhouette, adding pleats, adding gathering, using elastic band, creating different types of chest pockets and belts and epaulets and roll-up sleeve tabs. And actually this is quite cool, how to add trims. Then I'll show you how to finish your pattern, so select different hem allowances, and you can use the Find Your Finishes guide to select the best seam finishes. And there are some pro sewing tips at the end. And you can purchase the guides on my website, CLIQD Pattern Kits.com. I've got lots more pattern cutting videos coming up, so subscribe to my channel to stay in touch.